generation.
On BakerMoreShow.com, the Republican candidate for governor.
Have sexual relations
and
with
I realize that this is something he is
We're not going to be able to solve our problems if we get distracted by sideshows and carnival barkers.
One Republican, one Democrat, and you discuss the issues that matter in today's local, state, national, and global politics. Hosted by Steve Hickson with co-hosts John Stanberry and Franklin Chansey. This is Backfire.
Good morning, Cleveland. Welcome to Backfire. Hey, we've already got it started in the studio this morning. Hadn't even got on the air yet. John and Franklin are already at it.
Well, John missed me. I'd been gone a week, and he'd been saving it up. He couldn't help it.
Yeah, welcome back, Franklin.
Good morning.
Yeah, we had a good show last week when you was gone. We talked about you a little bit, time or two, I think, didn't we, John?
I hope at least a little of it was true.
Didn't his name come up? I thought it did a few times.
You said it did. Yeah.
Anyway, we had some good guests last week, had a good time, and we missed you, Franklin.
Aw.
I had all kinds of people told me that they almost went to sleep during the show last week. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. The guys that was here did a good job. Anyway, let's start off real quick with Volkswagen. What do you think about the big union vote down there, what the way it turned out, and what do you think the outcome's going to be in the future?
Do you want to start, or?
Well, I think they made the right decision. I think that we don't need a union down here. I think that the union was cheating at every step of the turn down there with the way that election was scheduled and the way they handled it inside the plant. The only thing I can't figure out is why in the world Volkswagen would have actually been cooperating with the union, which they were. And in spite of all of that, the majority of the people down there, by the way, the majority of the people who were allowed to vote in the list that the union was allowed to put together still voted them down.
Well, first of all, kudos to Volkswagen for trying to do something in a better way.
You mean like Detroit did it for 30 years?
No, in the way they want to do it,
Like
which
Detroit
is to actually cooperate with workers and try to work together as a team,
which is
an offensive concept to your side of the table.
It's an offensive concept to producing products in a capitalist society when you're competing against other capitalists.
Yeah, tell that to all those mine workers.
Well, tell
there,
that to
John.
all the people in
really.
Detroit who are completely unemployed now because of the UAW. By the way, Franklin,
because of poor management.
You want to talk about poor management? Talk about the UAW's pension plan that all of the people for years in Detroit and everywhere else who have been counting on are going to be left holding the bag because of the mismanagement by the UAW of the pension money.
Secondarily, back to Volkswagen.
You want to talk about the pension?
I don't know what you're talking about.
The UAW pension plan's going broke. So this group that you say protects the workers has misspent their money, and these workers who
you
have
mean
depended
like lots of cities around the country?
Yeah, who are going broke for the same reason, because of unsustainable benefits.
Volkswagen, first of all, this particular election, you say that they were unfair. I've never seen anything like that, actually, where elected state officials actually threatened the workers.
No one threatened them. They simply told them the reality.
No, they told them they would not get.
The truth hurts sometimes, doesn't it?
They said they would not get. No, let me finish. They said they would not get this new SUV coming here if they voted for the union.
Bob Corker said he had that directly from VW people.
Then why would VW be promoting the election?
Because you got different people inside VW. You had local VW people saying it wasn't true, but Bob says he was talking to big VW people.
It's the people in Germany who want it here.
Franklin, do you know what the average time
you had the state representatives over in Nashville saying they were not going to assist VW economically if it was
That's their job, is to spend the taxpayers' money wisely. And when they see the taxpayers' money being spent poorly, they pull the taxpayers' money back.
Yeah, those jobs, it's just a bad thing.
So do you think, Franklin, are you for the union in Chattanooga or against it?
What I think, Steve, is that there are lots of industries around this area and other areas where a union presence would be helpful.
For what? For what? Does the government guarantee workers, work conditions?
In some
Is there a full
aspects.
bureaucracy in place to protect workers' rights?
No.
Franklin, the union movement is what brought about the government bureaucracy to protect
the union
rights.
movement brought about lots of things, John.
And we don't need them
It brought
anymore.
it about much safer working conditions
And we don't.
for people.
That's right. And now we don't need a union anymore. Tell me why over $600 a year in the local workers at VDEBA should go to the union so they can spend hundreds of millions of dollars on Democratic candidates up north. Tell me why that was in a worker's best interest.
Because those efforts are supporting policies that tend to be pro-labor.
According to who?
Me.
The union bosses in Detroit? Why don't you let a worker give his money where he wants to give his money? By the way, the majority of those workers elected Corker to the U.S. Senate.
What they want is to make sure that workers don't have any kind of combined voice in dealing with their employers. That's what you prefer.
Well, by the way, MSNBC says that it's racism is the reason the vote failed.
Racism.
Racism.
Because the votes.
Because a billboard went up that had Obama's name on it. And if you use Obama's name, you're a racist. So MSNBC ran a whole segment on how the vote in Tennessee was racism. You all are so failed, you have nothing to fall back on except name calling and this race baiting stuff.
Well, frankly, I'm going back to my question. Do you think a union would help Volkswagen in Chattanooga?
Well, you've got a short-term answer and a long-term answer.
Mm-hmm.
Volkswagen wants to have a model in its plants where they set up these things that they call works councils. Right. Okay? Mm-hmm. Works councils meaning that they have a management team inside the plant that has employees as part of that team in that process.
Did Corker say he was against that process?
No, what he said was it's illegal under current
and
law.
why is that, Franklin? Let's talk about that.
And then he also said, but he wasn't in favor of changing the law to allow it.
Why did we have to have UAW sponsor this?
Because for years that was passed in the 70s and 80s when the Democrats were in majorities and they protected their union bosses. And that's why that law was put in place.
If that's your real concern, then I'm waiting anxiously for Senator Corker to introduce the bill that says that it doesn't have to be the UAW.
Senator Corker is in a minority chamber where your guys changed the rules to be able to ram through what they wanted.
Just introduce the bill. If it doesn't get voted on, then you can blame the Democrats for it.
Franklin, where's the possibility of the other SUV plant going? What country?
Mexico.
Do you know how much Mexican workers make compared to the guys in Chattanooga?
Less, I'm sure.
1/6.
Okay.
Now, you think that you need a union down there to elevate the wages higher in Chattanooga so they're less competitive?
So why did the first plant get built here then, John, if all they had to do was go open up and pay workers less down there?
Well, quite
Maybe
frankly,
because there are other reasons why they felt they could do a better job
I'm not
here.
sure because the quality levels coming out of the Mexican plants are actually equal to ours. Now, I don't know why. I'm just thankful that we did, and so was Corker, and we want to protect what we've already got.
And again, Volkswagen was in favor of this.
Well, one of the reasons
that's
we probably
just a fact,
yes, Volkswagen was in favor of a works council. If not for your Democratic buddies writing laws to benefit the unions, we could have had a works council without the
John,
UAW.
I'm waiting anxiously for Senator Corker to introduce that bill.
Franklin, I'm sure that will get introduced, and I'm sure Harry Reid will not schedule it for a vote like he hasn't scheduled.
Senator Alexander and Senator Corker said they didn't think it would be introduced.
Franklin,
why don't they do it?
Why would you introduce it in a house that's not even going to call it up for a vote?
Start the process. Start a discussion in the country. Maybe the country will line up behind them.
Our guys in the House have passed all kinds of jobs bills, and the Senate under Harry Reid won't even schedule them for debate.
Here's the way I think it should be handled. I think Volkswagen should do what they want to do internally to run their company. They made a decision to come to Tennessee. Why? Why did they decide to come to Tennessee, you think?
A whole host of reasons. Location.
Why didn't they just go back to Detroit and use one of those?
They never had a plant in Detroit.
Well, I know it, but there was a lot of empty buildings up there they could have got for a lot less money.
Because Michigan is not a right-to-work state.
That's right. And, I don't know that if Volkswagen's really pushing this or if something from a union perspective went to Germany and pushed it from Germany and forced it to come to Tennessee.
Volkswagen does the same thing in all of its other plants. This is the only plant where they don't have one of these works councils.
No one was opposed to a works council, Franklin. We were opposed to the UAW.
Yeah. A works council is...
By the way, Franklin, do you know what the average time from when the NLRB is requested to hold an election to when they hold an election is?
It varies
40.
wildly,
No,
John.
it's about 40 days.
It
This was
varies
2
wildly,
weeks. This was.
John.
It does not, Franklin. It averages 40 days, and this was 2 weeks. They got an accelerated vote, which favors the union. The union was allowed to come in and basically campaign inside the facility while the anti-union people were not. And then after all of that,
You're telling
after
me
all of
there
that
was
cheating-
no anti-union campaign?
Can you hear clearly, Franklin? I said they were allowed in the plant to organize inside the plant, and the anti-union people were not allowed
All I
inside the
heard
plant.
was
inside the
anti-union
plant,
stuff.
Franklin. They were, in other words,
yes,
they
because,
cheated.
John, when people walk through that door, Lord, they can't hear anything else.
But
Come
Franklin,
on.
you're missing the point because
There
you
is
don't
no
want to get
point.
the point. The
It's a
point
silly
is
point.
they cheated at every turn and they still
cheated.
lost, and now they're whining. They're whiny
I'm not
losers.
whining. You brought it up.
They lost and now they're whining.
Well, anyway, no union for Volkswagen in Chattanooga was the outcome of the vote.
Which means we might actually keep the plant, unlike Detroit.
Do you think we'll get the new SUV?
Senator Corker seems to think we will.
You want to take bets on it, Franklin?
I would say if Senator Corker doesn't deliver it, he ought to resign. Because he said, by God, you're not going to
Wait a
deliver unless you vote against it."
a minute. If Corker's going to resign, how about Obama resigning?
How about Sebelius in the Obamacare rollout? How
No,
about she
I'm
resign?
just saying, he said, if you vote for this, you won't get it. So that tells me he knows something the rest of us don't.
Well,
so
if
it
you-
better come.
Hey, you get to keep your health care if you want it, according to Obama.
And you get to keep your
most,
doctor.
most
You
everybody
get to
I
keep
know
your
did.
doctors. You get to
Most
keep your
everybody
doctor.
I know did.
well, you must live in a nice bubble because everybody else in the world lost theirs.
No, I went out and just looked on the website and got a plan. It didn't affect me. And by the way, if you got on there, it didn't affect you either.
By the way, I had to have my own plan because
As did I.
because we're self-employed, which is what this president has beaten into the ground. These
But we bought our
self-employed
plan
business
on
owners.
the same healthcare exchange as everybody
No,
else.
I didn't. I had it outside of the exchange, Franklin, and so did you.
I went on the exchange this time, John. I kept all the same doctors. I saved money, and my coverage didn't change.
Well, Franklin, guess what? There's nothing for free, and someone pays for
Now,
that.
wait a minute. Did you get on the Obama site and do that yourself?
Actually, our insurance broker, who's come in here and talked to us several times,
Mr. Fickelstaller found it for
who
you.
did, but he did it on the exchange. That's his statement. Our policy, our coverage did not change, and our cost went down.
Why do you think everybody else is complaining around the country?
I don't think everybody is complaining. There are some people complaining.
There's
because
tons of people complaining.
I didn't
Franklin,
say
and
no.
this administration is lying every step of the way. It's gone from 6 million have signed up to 9 million. Yesterday, I heard a guy on the TV say, "Well, it's 14 million." Hell, it changes every day. Of course, the fact that half of them haven't actually paid, they won't announce. They also won't talk about the Democratic breakdown of how many young people, healthy people signed up. This is such a disaster, and it is by the way, Franklin, I printed up a little flow sheet for you. Here is a list of all of the unconstitutional changes that your dictatorial president has put in place with this law. And what I want you to do is I want you to hang on to that, because when we elect a Republican president in 2016, I hope you're happy with him being able to unilaterally change laws that Congress has passed. At
Well,
his
we
own
shall
whim.
see, because it's a Republican precedent that he's following. As
Well,
you already
you know
know,
what, Franklin,
as you already know,
I've got a
the
good
executive
friend.
order has really been largely a tool of the Republican Party for years.
It's not how
And
many
this
times,
president-
Franklin,
and this
it's how
president
extensive.
has used it extensively less than his predecessors.
Numbers of times, Franklin,
Of
not
course.
the extensive nature. By the way, Franklin,
What
I got
you mean is Republican use versus Democratic
No,
use?
numbers. I've got a good friend that is about as liberal as they come, Jonathan Turley. He is a law professor at George Washington University. He is as left-wing as they come. His actual quote last week to a congressional committee was, "This president has become the president that Richard Nixon wishes he could have been." He has said that this is a threat to our democracy.
Who used it a lot less than Ronald Reagan?
Franklin,
Who
Jonathan
used it a lot less
Turley
than the two
is
Bushes?
as
It's not how
liberal
many
as you
times
will
you use
find.
it, Franklin. It's what you do with it.
All of those executive orders are a power grab by the executive.
Well,
every one of them.
No, if you need to move a rock somewhere and the president can sign this to go ahead and do that
That's
on
not an
federal
executive-
land.
that's not what's required
there's
for an
a lot of
executive
things
order.
there.
Franklin,
that-
here's how this works. If Congress passes a law and it says you will implement this service by December 31st, and the president says, you know what, I've decided by executive order I'm going to implement that using X department rather than Y department. That's an executive order that's generally been seen as within the realm of his abilities. When the president says, you know what, I've decided I'm not going to execute it by December 31st, I'm going to execute it 5 years later. That's a violation of law,
Well,
and that's the difference.
Well, if that proves to be unconstitutional, which has not been determined yet, I'm sure the Supreme Court
I'm
will
so
let him know
happy that you Democrats pull this plan all the time. The only way you determine unconstitutional is someone has to take him to court. Guess what? The congressmen and the senators can't even get standing to take him to court, and you know that.
Okay, let's change the subject here. What about minimum wage increase to $10.10 an hour? Yay or nay, Franklin?
Yay.
I don't even have to ask John, I don't think.
I don't think you do.
Well, the CBO just released a report that says it will cost 500,000 jobs by 2016 and maybe up to 1 million jobs.
Actually, what the CBO report says is that it could have a minimal impact. It could have more than that. So they just went, we'll take the middle number. That's
right,
what it
so
actually
they split
said.
the difference.
No, that's right, which means that they don't know.
In other words,
Now we do.
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute.
We do
Well,
have.
actually,
wait,
wait a
we
minute.
do have experience with raising the minimum wage, and it did not have any negative effect
Well,
on jobs.
let's talk about this just for a minute. And this is another thing that Mr. Obama wants to sign into law.
He can't do that by himself. It has to be passed.
He's
by
already
Congress.
done it on the federal contracts
That's
by
a
himself.
different thing.
Federal contracts is what
He
I'm
did
talking
it, though.
about.
No, we're
he
talking
signed,
about across the board, though.
Right,
Well,
but he's
no.
already done it on the federal contracts, which most people would consider beyond the scope of what he should have been doing.
That's not true at all.
Should he have done that?
Sure, he should.
Why? Where's his right to go?
Yeah,
Have
where's
you
his
heard
right
his
come to
quotes
do
from
that?
2007 about the executive orders? Have you heard what he said? He said that George Bush, he said on day one, he would order his attorney general to review every executive order, and if they were unconstitutional, they would be reversed because they were concentrating too much power in the executive branch.
Okay.
Apparently, that man died before he took the oath of
Which
office.
would explain why he's used executive orders about 20% as often as the
As
president.
often, but he's done more damage. Hey, here's the deal. I'm going to walk up to you with a feather, and I'm going to hit you 100 times with the feather. Franklin's going to walk up to you with a baseball bat, but he's only going to hit you 20 times. Feel good about that?
Except that what John says is this unconstitutional grab is something like delaying something that's going into effect.
Beyond a law that says
and by the way, it's the same thing that you would want him to do.
Franklin,
Well, wait a minute, Franklin.
Franklin.
this is what's crazy.
No, you're not
okay?
going there
No,
because
here-
the Republicans
no, it is what I am going
the
there, John.
Republicans offered
I'm going
many
exactly
of,
there.
The Republicans
I'm
offered.
going exactly there. This president does something that you want him to do.
Why didn't
but
he
you
let
say
the
it's
Congress do it?
unconstitutional
Why
to
didn't he
do
just
it.
call Harry Reid and tell him?
Why did we
Franklin,
want him
There's so
to
much
raise the minimum wage?
hypocrisy on the Republican side.
Franklin,
they should just change their name to
Why
the old
didn't
hypocrite
he
party.
just call Harry Reid?
The OHP.
Franklin, why didn't he just call Harry Reid and tell him to pass the same changes that the Republican House had already passed? Why didn't he do it that way? If he wanted it, why didn't he
Because
do
as
it?
soon as he did that, the Republicans in the House would be opposed to
In
it.
other words, he's scared of the way the Constitution is supposed to actually work.
No.
He's afraid that the Congress might actually fix
No,
the law.
he's perfectly happy to
No,
have
he's
things
not.
go
He's a
forward in the
dictator.
future based upon Republicans' refusal to do anything
Franklin,
to solve
the
any
Republican
problem.
House has passed 39 different jobs bills, none of which the Senate Democrats will allow to come to a vote.
Go to conference on the immigration bill then if you have such faith in the
Well,
process.
by the way, I'm
John.
glad you brought
I'm glad-
that up
yeah.
because in the
Go
most
to
I wasn't going to
Franklin,
bring that up
I'm
for a
glad
while,
you brought
Frank.
that up because in the most recent poll, even among Democrats, only half of 1% think immigration is important. Jobs is the number one thing
Yes,
that people
and all
want.
of the economists who look at it say it would be a boon for the economy. But no,
Wait a
you
minute.
don't care about
Wait a
that.
minute, wait a minute. Tell me that again. The economists think that immigration is a boon for
Working
the
out a plan to solve the immigration issue would be a
All right.
tremendous shot in the
All
arm
right,
for the economy.
let's the three of us right now. Calm down, you guys. Let's the three of us work out an immigration plan right here, right now.
Obey the law. There's your plan.
Okay. Now then, it's not fair, John. Let's change it. So let's change the law. Let's come up with an immigration plan that we can sign with our ink pen and put in place tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Now then, would an illegal immigrant's child that was born in the United States be able to remain?
Yes.
Okay. Would the illegal immigrant that came into the States and produced an illegal child be able to remain?
Oh, I think as a practical matter, that's how it will be.
Should we put time limits on that? In other words, if they've been here 5 years or more and had a child in the United States, they should be able to remain?
I don't know the answer to that one.
Well, no, you got to make up your mind. We're going to make this
what
right.
I would say is that you would create a defined path to some sort of legal status.
Well,
We have a path right now. It's called a little trail through the Arizona desert.
What I'm trying to do is, it's really complicated.
It is
They
complicated.
say it's very complicated, but I don't think it's that
You
complicated.
have a law in place, enforce the law. That's the end of the problem, right there. Enforce the law.
Well,
but by the way, there
John,
was a negotiation.
unfortunately-
Sure.
with
Here's
the
what you
Democrats
do.
and
Here's what you do.
That
Here's what you
violated.
do.
Let me get back to what I was saying.
Here's what you do.
Unfortunately, we've illegally been letting this go on for so long.
Because the
Now
Democrats
we've
never funded
Oh,
their
wait a minute,
agreement
wait a
with
minute.
President
But now
Reagan.
we've created another problem that needs to be resolved. We've got illegal immigrants having children in America that are in American schools, that are in high school, let's say. All of a sudden, their parents are being deported back to Mexico, and they've never even spoke the language. They've been in our school systems. What should we do with that? That's the only argument we have, is what we've got to do to change what's been happening illegally. It's been going on. We've allowed it to go on. We haven't done anything about it. How do we stop the problem as it is now, and then how do we fix it? That is the issues here, and it seems like we're playing on a merry-go-round. Nobody can decide.
Are you going to aggressively, and this goes across multiple administrations, not Democrat or Republican, are you going to aggressively prosecute the people who invite them in here to work?
Well,
No, there's ways to do that. There's
No,
there's
they
legal
come here to work.
There's legal ways to do that, Franklin.
There are 13 million.
Are there
of these
legal
people.
ways for people to come here to
There's
work?
legal ways to do that.
Already on the books?
There's on
Not
the book.
enough, apparently.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there are. They just don't want to do it. And
Yes,
so they
there
violate the law, and now we're going to accommodate
But
that
wait a
law
minute.
violation.
Let's go back to a simple fix. Can we say that if they've been here less than 5 years, they can be deported?
How do you determine how long they've been here?
I think
Gee,
we can.
Franklin,
We
that's
could
a
probably.
wonderful
No, it's
problem
a
for you,
practical
isn't it?
question. I'm just asking you a question.
Well, let's just ask them. Let's just say they're going to be honest. Let's start there.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Now then. All right. Now then, 5 years or less, they go back. Right? Can we do
Okay.
that? Can we do that?
Sure.
Even if they've had a child here in America. Because that child has not been brought up in the school system yet. It has not been part of, introduced to the American society yet. So let's send them back to where they came from. Now then, anything over 5 years, I'm sorry, we screwed up. That'll work. We'll keep going. Let's do something to correct the problem. But we got to stop it at the borders. It's got to
You got to
stop.
shut the border down
That's right.
first, which is what Republicans have said for years. In the 80s, Reagan negotiated with the Democrats in good faith that we would allow these people to stay and we would close the borders. The Democrats, who were in charge for decades after that, never closed the borders.
Franklin, you know as well as John and I know, and most people know around here, that the reason that they're coming across the border like they are is simply for more Democratic votes. They're going to lean
Why are they
democratically
coming
to
here
vote.
just so they can vote for Democrats?
No, they come here and
To work.
They come
Well,
here
to
and
work for 5 years, and on average, around 5 years, they get on welfare, they get on all the
That's
government
right.
programs.
They get on all the
It takes
government
5 years,
programs,
and that's a study.
And who
Franklin,
are they
not
going
me.
to vote for? The ones that are providing all
More
the
money.
government programs.
Well,
I mean, it's really there.
there are
It's-
proposals out there that don't have anything to do
Well,
with
one of
voting.
the proposals Republicans said is ask them all to go home, reapply through the new process, and you all hit the roof that was horrible. You were tearing families apart. God
No,
forbid we
what we
expect
think
people to obey
is
the
that
law.
you're sticking your head in the sand, is what we think.
Who is?
If you think all you have to do is say we want you to go home, that they're all going to pick up and leave.
You're right.
No.
You want to know when
That's
the
sticking your head in
You're
the
right,
sand.
Franklin. We have stuck our heads in the sand. We stuck our heads in the sands in the 80s when we expected the Democrats to actually uphold their end of the bargain and shut the border down. And you never did.
So when the two Bushes were in charge of the Immigration Service,
Yep.
when they were in charge of border security, Okay, why didn't that stem the flow of it then?
Well, I tell you what, Franklin. Let me show you how you.
That's all it is.
Let me show you
John.
how you and I are different. The two Bushes were wrong, and they should have done it. You, unfortunately, worshiping on Obama's altar, can never say he's wrong.
That it's the Democrats' fault
They
that
didn't
the border
fund it.
security is not higher.
I'm sorry. I know government's complicated for you liberals. The government has to be funded by the legislature. The Democrats were in control of the legislature. They never funded the border security.
Was there a period of time in there where the Republicans did that?
Yeah, and they started building
they
started building the fences.
And so
during that time.
That's
they didn't do enough, but they at least started.
Well,
Franklin, you know what? Do you have a door on your house? Do you ever close it and lock it?
John, we have found tunnels dug under rivers for these
Franklin,
people to come
let me
through.
ask you a question.
Oh, it's
Do you think a law is a better prevention for burglary or a locked door? Which works better for your house?
What I think is it would require your party to fess up and say, you know what, we'd have to spend money to do that.
Well, I tell you what, Franklin, go home, take the door off the hinges of your house, and put a sign up on the top and say, this is a border to my property, don't enter, and see how that works for you.
Well, it works pretty well most of the time.
All right, take the door down and put the sign up.
All right, I've got
and while
one more
you're at it,
question.
Put gun-free zone up, then you'll be protected from guns, too.
I've got another quick question before we take a break. We've had the 84-year-old nun recently that was she just got 3 years in prison for breaking in nuclear weapons complex. That's in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. What's your opinion of this? I mean, it was a protest against nuclear power, I guess, and they broke into the place, illegally broke into the facility.
Well, the breaking in part's probably an overstatement when you read the facts of what happened. She clearly violated the law.
They cut fences and went well deep into the facility.
I would say this: in the long run, she probably did us a favor.
She did. I will say they did screw up by not having better security.
Well, that's putting it mildly.
Well, evidently, some of the people that were with her got more time because of their backgrounds, criminal backgrounds. They got 5 years. She got 3.
They had all done previous types of protest activity before.
She broke the law. The law, no one's above the law except this president.
It's amazing to me that people go to the extremes they do to try to I guess, make their point.
Well, they have a right to it, and then they have a right to serve the consequences.
Well, I mean, they could stay outside the fence and protest, but to break through the fence and get in, I mean, that's breaking and entering, isn't it?
Not if you're on the Mexican border.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Backfire with Steve Hickson. We'll be right back after this.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
You need money overnight? Check into cash. Your time is tight. .com. Bank account's too low? Check into cash. So where do you go? .com. Do it online in a record time. It's the easy way to get money next day. Do a quick click from home at checkintocash.com. Just stay in the house, check into cash, and grab your mouse.com. Get your money online, check into cash, right on time.com. You can be sure it's secure from our bank straight to yours. Do a quick click from home at checkintocash.com. No time to get away, check into cash. You've got to stay home.com. Hey, that's okay, check into cash. You can do it alone.com. Any old time, do it online. Just stay in the house and grab your mouse. Do a quick click from home. Get your money overnight at the right website. Do a quick click from home. Go to checkintocash.com.
Did you know that U.S. Money Shops cashes all checks, even the ones most check cashers reject? Tax refund checks, government checks, payroll checks, and many more. And when you cash a check with U.S. Money Shops, we'll give you 10% off your next purchase. At U.S. Money Shops, we have everything you need at a fraction of regular retail. So stop by one of our 11 locations or visit us online at usmoneyshops.com.
Buy or sell or buy today, the better way at U.S. Money Shops.
Some restrictions may apply. See store for details.
Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call